This video is for sections 11.1, 11.2, Introduction to Graphing Linear Equations. So first of all, when we're going to graph anything, we need to understand the x and y coordinate plane. So here we have the x-axis, which is the horizontal axis. The y-axis is the vertical axis. The point where they cross is the origin, that's 0, 0. Is the coordinates, where x is 0 and y is 0. So those two axes split the plane up into 4 quadrants. So we have Q1, quadrant 1, and then it goes counterclockwise, quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. All right. So every point in the plane has an x coordinate value and a y coordinate value, and it's written in the form of an ordered pair like so. And so first we're going to learn how to plot some points in the coordinate plane, and unfortunately my printer color didn't come out very good, so I apologize for that. But if you're following along with the notes that you find online, you can see the proper coloring. Not really that big of a deal. Anyway, so let's plot the point 2, 3, point A. So x is 2, y is 3. So 2 on the x-axis and 3 on the y-axis, and where those meet, that's going to be where our point is located. Okay, and we want to label, if you were doing a test or something where your task was to plot points, like this, you'd want to label the point with either coordinates or the letter A. In this case would be fine either way. I'll just go ahead and put both on here. Either one would be fine. Okay, so also we want to state the quadrant or axis the point is on. So point A is in quadrant 1. All right, so point B, 0, 4. So x is 0, y is 4. So that's going to be right there. And that is point, we're going to label it point B, 0, 4. That is right directly on the y-axis. Okay. All right. Point C, -1, 5. So x is -1, y is 5. So that's up here. That's in quadrant 2. So we use Roman numerals for the quadrants. All right. So yeah, so the first number is always the x value, the second number is always the y value. Okie dokie. All right, so point D, -3, -6. Okay, x is -3, y is -6. That's right there. And that is in quadrant 3. Okay. And then point E, 4, -5. Right there. And that's in quadrant 4. And then point E, 3, 0. That's going to be right there on the x-axis. Okay. All right. So next we will start graphing some equations. All right, so complete the table and graph the equation. So anytime you're graphing any kind of equation, an XY table is usually a really helpful thing to have. So for number 1, the equation they want us to graph is x minus y equals 3. All right, and they've given us the table. They've filled in some of the values, and we need to fill in the rest. So they've given us 0 for an x value, so we would need to plug that into the equation and figure out when x is 0, what is y equal to. So that would be 0 minus y equals 3. So that would be negative y equals 3. So negative y is the same thing as saying negative 1 times y. So to solve that, I would divide both sides by negative 1. So then I would have y equals negative 3. So whenever x is 0, y is equal to negative 3. All right, and then so that means that the point 0, 3 is a point on the graph of this equation. So, and normally when I'm doing graphs, I don't bother writing like 1, 2, 3, 4, unless for some reason I'm needing to scale my graph with a different scale, like if I needed to go 10, 20, 30 or something like that, I would label it, but normally I don't find the need to label it. So I just assume that each square is 1 unit and it's 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so 0, negative 3 would be here. All right, and so the next line on the table, they've put in 0 for y. So I need to plug in to my equation the 0 for y. So that'll be x minus 0 equals 3. So that'll be x equals 3. And so whenever y is 0, x is 3. So that means the point 3, 0 is also on the graph. I just realized I plotted the first point wrong. Whoops. Should have got me some white out. Oh well. Let's see. All right, so 3, 0 is right there. 0, negative 3 should be here. All right, and the next point, they've given us 2 for x. So we want to plug in 2 for x, and then we want to solve for y. So 2 minus y equals 3. So subtract 2 from both sides, so negative y equals 1. So that's negative y is the same thing as negative 1y. So we'll divide both sides by negative 1 to get y equals negative 1. So whenever x is 2, y is equal to negative 1. So 2, negative 1 is a point on the graph. All right, and then the last line on the table, they gave us 1 for x. So we're going to plug that in to find out what y would be. So 1 minus y equals 3. Subtract 1 from both sides, so that would give you negative y equals 2. And then divide both sides by negative 1, so that would give you y equals negative 2. So whenever x is 1, y equals negative 2. So 1 comma negative 2 is another point on the graph. I'll plot it right there. All right, so now I need to go ahead and complete the graph by actually drawing the line. So it's going to go through these points that I've plotted, but it doesn't stop at those points. Those are not the only points on the graph. It keeps on going, and it should have like an arrow on the end. All right, and there we have the graph. Okay. And then it is asking for the x and y intercept. All right, so the x-intercept is the point where the graph intercepts the x-axis. So in other words, it is the point where y is equal to 0. So in this case, our x-intercept is over here. There's our x-intercept. And so that the coordinates for the x-intercept are 3, 0. And then for the y-intercept, that's the point wherever the graph hits the y-axis. So that is here. Okay, and that is located at 0, -3. Okay. Moving on to number 2. Okay, so it says graph the equation by plotting points. And the equation is y equals -1. So that means that, so this time they did not give us any numbers in the table, so they would want us to make our own. So since the equation is y equals -1, that means I'm going to fill in a -1 for each y value. All right, and then in this case, I can basically just pick any numbers that I want for my x values. Okay, so let's see, and I'm going to pick something that will actually fit on my graph space that I have there. I don't want to pick -500 or anything like that. So let's do -5, and then let's do -2, 0, and 3. Okay, so I just picked those pretty much random. All right, and now I'm going to go ahead and plot those points. There's the first one, -5, -1, -2, -1, 0, -1, and 3, -1. All right, and then I will go ahead and draw the line through the points and beyond. Okay. So that is a horizontal line. All right, so the y-intercept is located at 0, -1, right there. And the x-intercept does not exist for this graph, so none. All right. Number 3. All right, so number 3, it says graph the equation by plotting the intercepts. Okay, so you have to pay close attention to those instructions. So for example, when you're doing this online, when you're doing your online homework or possibly online quiz or test, you have to pay attention to those instructions. If it says graph it by plotting the intercepts, you have to plot the x and y intercepts and graph it. And if you plot different points and not those, then it'll count it wrong. And you'll be really upset and you'll be emailing me because you'll see that, you know, their answer looks exactly like your answer, but they said it's wrong. But the reason why will be because you didn't do the intercepts. Okay, so for example, on number 1, so really it only takes 2 points to graph the line. When you're like, you know, like, so if you're doing this on the computer, you'll only have to click 2 points and that's it. So on this one, if it were to say graph this equation by plotting the intercepts, you would just need to plot those specific 2 points. All right. Now, if you didn't plot those 2 points and you plotted these 2 points instead, it would count it wrong. Okay. All right. So I just want to point that out. So in this case, the equation is x equals -1. So that means that I'm just going to put -1 in for all of my x values. So x is always -1. And then I can just pick whatever numbers I want for the y. So I think I'm going to go with -4, 0, 2, and 6. Okay, I just picked randomly those numbers. And now I'm going to plot those points. So -1, -4. And then -1, 0. And then -1, 2. -1, 6. All right, and now I'll go ahead and draw the line. All right, so we can see that this is a vertical line. So anytime you have x equals a number, that's a vertical line. And when you had y equals a number, that's always a horizontal line. Okay, so in this case, we have the x-intercept there. So the coordinates for the x-intercept are -1, 0, and there is no y-intercept. Okay. So next, number 4, it says, is 0, 2 a solution to 9x minus 8y equals 1? Okay. So, let's see here. All right, so in this case, they're saying that 0 is the x value, -2 is the y value. So we want to plug this in. So we're going to take 0, we're going to plug it in for x in the equation, and we're going to take -2 and plug that in for the y in the equation. And then see if it comes out to be true. So 9 times 0 minus 8 times -2. So 9 times 0 is 0 minus, and actually a minus times a negative, so that's going to make that a plus. 8 times 2, 16. So it's going to be plus 16 equals 1. All right, well, 0 plus 16 is 16, and 16 equals 1, we know that is false. So to answer their question, no. Alrighty. And number 5, pretty much the same question, but they've given us a different number to plug in. So is 1, 1 a solution to that equation? So we'll plug in 1 for x, and we will plug in 1 for y. All right, so 9 times 1 minus 8 times 1 equals 1. So 9 times 1 is 9, and 8 times 1 is 8. So 9 minus 8 is equal to 1. That is true. So the answer to this question is yes. Okay. And next we have a application. In other words, a word problem. Okay. All right, so it says, suppose a water company charges each customer $10 per month plus 5 cents for every gallon of water used. Let X represent the number of gallons used in a month. Then the monthly bill Y is given by Y equals 0.05x plus 10. Answer the following questions and use that information to write an ordered pair that is a point on the line. All right. So let's see. So part A says, if a household used 100 gallons of water in 1 month, how much would their bill be for that month? So 100 gallons, and it says X represents the number of gallons. So that means that they're saying that X equals 100, and then we want to plug that into the equation to solve for Y. So Y equals 0.05 times 100 plus 10. All right, so we're going to multiply 0.05 times 100. All right, so that's basically, this is 5 100ths times 100, so it's 5. So this whole thing right here is 5. So 5 plus 10 is 15. So when X is 100, Y is 15. That's dollars. So their bill is $15. So to use that information to write an ordered pair that would be on the line, that would be X is 100 and Y is 15. So 100 comma 15 is a point on the graph of that line. And then part B says, if the bill was $40, how many gallons of water did they use? Okay, so the bill is $40, so the bill is Y. So we're going to plug $40 in for Y in that equation. So 40 equals 0.05x plus 10. And we have to solve for x, so I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides. All right, so that's 30 equals 0.05x. So then we're going to divide both sides by 0.05. Okay. So 0.05 going into 30. All right, well, we have to move that decimal point 2 times to the right to make it a whole number, which means we have to move this decimal point 2 times to the right also. So it's basically like saying 5 going into 3,000. So 5 can't go into 3, but 5 goes into 30 6 times. 6 times 5 is 30. And then that's 0. So this is going to be 0. 5 goes into 0 0 times, and another 0. So that's going to be 600. 600 is equal to X. So that's 600 gallons that they used. All right, so as far as a point on the line, okay, let's see. So X is 600 and Y is 40. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up with graphing this particular line. Do a nice little sketch of this application problem. All right. Okay, so the x-axis represents the number of gallons, and the y-axis represents the dollar amount of the bill. Okay. All right, let's see. And let me go ahead and make like a little table using those points. So when X is 100, Y is 15. And when X is 600, Y is 40. So for the x-axis, I'm just going to scale by 100s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's 100, and that's 600. And I'll just count by 10s for the y-axis. 10, 20, 30, 40. And then I'll just plot those points. So when X is 100, Y is 15. So that would be right about there. And when X is 600, Y is 40. And that would be right about here. And then I'll just go ahead and draw the line. All right, and it would go to right here. My y-intercept is actually 10 because they pay $10 if they use no gallons. Now it doesn't keep going this way because you can't have a negative number of gallons, but it does keep going this way because there's no upper limit to how many gallons you could use, I guess. All right, and so that concludes this video. Thanks for watching.